Do you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can.
wonderful. My name is Joseph.
My name is Aisha. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Aisha.
Mhm.
Um, I was very curious about your work on Istanbul,
Mhm.
and um, perhaps I begin with a very silly question because it probably it could clear some um, concepts.
Mhm.
How would you define the notion or concept of Islamism?
Mm. You know, actually, I have many controversies in my head
Yeah,
too
even
because it
controversial, or
is.
even several
It,
definitions.
in the case of Turkey, you know, until now, until recent years, everybody was telling the Islamism is a sort of social movement like what happened in the 60s in Europe or the United States, that kind of social movement, but it has a kind of religious content. But looking from now, I suggest to describe it as a sort of class movement, including many types of social movements, because Islamism is not a how to say Islamism is a sort of fragmented movement. It has many different movements. But in the case of Turkey and many Islamic countries, actually, the modernization project and secularization project uh, push Islam into the private life and identified Islam itself, again, you know, religion, with backwardness, with poverty, with ignorance, actually. And since 1980s, with the neoliberalization and liberalization of market mechanism, they entered the system. First, until 80s, at least in Turkey, there was a kind of mutual exclusion between Islam, the religious segments of society, and the secular modernization project. You know, the Islamists, the religious people, not Islamists, but religious people, was thinking modernization is a kind of sinful project, and modernization was thinking Islam or religiosity is something backward. So there was a sort of mutual exclusion.
Yeah.
But after the liberalization of market mechanism, especially in Turkey, they entered into the system and they started to benefit. After that, it became a sort of rising class movement. So, but it has still some different, smaller social movements. So because of that, I can describe Islamism like a class movement branded with Islam. A class movement of Islamic segments of society in Turkey, uh, branded and motivated with Islam. But what is this Islam? I'm not again sure.
But this means finally that you would say that this kind of Islamism is product of metropolitan cultures.
Yes, exactly. It's very urban, it's very industrial, even post-industrial, and it's very modern. It is very metropolitan and it is very cosmopolitan, actually. From outside, it seems a little bit monolithic because of the lifestyles suggestions, according to the secular gaze. But it is not like that. Inside it has many differences and it is itself
And
cosmopolitan.
would you say this is exactly the sort of Islamism of Erdogan?
Erdogan Islamism is, how to say, Erdogan experienced a sort of generation clash with Erbakan before him. And he changed his look, his narration totally after staying half a year in prison. And, he came with a totally different political and social project. So Erdogan's Islamism, I'm defining as I'm also a journalist, and
I know.
now
Yeah.
I'm not talking as an academician,
Yeah.
but more as a journalist. Erdogan's Islamism is a kind of market Islamism because his aim is development.
It's very interesting expression, market Islamism.
Yes,
Okay.
market Islamism, because he defines, and not only he, but first of all, I should maybe define what is AKP before Erdogan, because Erdogan is leading a party, and that party is reshaping Erdogan's narration, Erdogan's political project. Erbakan was trying to deal with
Erbakan, who was also
the head of welfare party, you know.
But also of Milli Görüş.
He was the creator of Milli Görüş idea. Erbakan was dealing with different religious communities, so it means the cosmopolitanism of the Islam through the leaderships of those communities. But Erdogan learned market mechanism really good and local politics really good in his experience in the municipality, Istanbul, greater city municipality. And instead of working with the leaders and elders, he chose the technocratic people, technocratic representatives of those religious communities. So AKP became a collection of different religious communities, but not in the level of the leadership or symbolic representative, but in work, at work. And he created a sort of new language, a new political language, including Islam, but mainly that Islam is reshaped through the market mechanism, through the realities of market mechanism, because during 1990s he had a very huge middle class and upper class, you know, thanks to Erbakan. Again, you know, it is a kind of continuity, but thanks to neoliberal market mechanism. So he just choose to talk to them by the work of business, by the language of business and market. So because of that, I'm telling it's, you know, it is a kind of market Islamism. And if you want, I can also give an example from the field. You know what is
for example, yes, please.
There is a woman in Başakşehir, my field, and she is making NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. This is a sort of personal development tool now. It is very fashionable in the United States especially. And she's also a headscarf and very Muslim. You know, before the last election in June, she declared polygamy is good for women, not only men, but women. And you know, I was really curious why she is telling and how she justified this. I made an interview with her, and you know, she told me, first of all, I was thinking, you know, she will tell something to justify this argument. She will tell something from Islamic history or Quran or Hadith, these kind of things. But she chose to choose this type of narration. She told me, okay, you know, in the free market mechanism, competition brings quality. And competing with another woman for a man, you know, those women will learn how to be women better. So, you know, there is no Islam inside of it. You know, she is Muslim, but she is rationalizing an Islamic how to say allowance. It's not an order, but allowance through the market mechanism instead of religion. So it is what AKP is doing, actually.
What is very interesting for us, and even talking with different participants of this conference, very striking is that there is a new combination between religion and capitalism, and it does not depend if it is Muslim culture or Christian culture. It seems to be exactly the same combination, that a specific form of, for example, financial capitalism and religion fits very well together. And this means at the same time that there is another form of Islamism, which is a rural, traditional Islamism. Would you make this distinction
I'm
between
not
a
sure.
metropolitan Islamism and a rural or
Religiosity, maybe. I wouldn't call it Islamism, but religiosity. Yeah, there is still some religious,
no,
rural
so,
religiosity.
think about of a certain Taliban Islamism or
I cannot categorize Taliban in rural Islamism. You know, it is something different. It is, more activist. It is so much political, and Islam is not only one concern of Taliban. It is totally different. You know, now we are talking when we are talking about Islamism in Turkey, or for example now in Egypt or Tunisia, we are talking something totally different because of Taliban's history. I'm saying it. You know. But in Turkey, again, I can say there is a rural religiosity, but urban Islamism, and there are some clashes started in a very slow way between that religiosity and that Islamism, because that Islamism, market Islamism, is very colonialistic in a way, and it is consuming, for example, in Turkey, in the Black Sea region. There are, Turkey is not very rich with water resources, but in Black Sea region there are many rivers, and those are very religious people, and the government wants to make around 900 dam project there, and those religious people are against that Islamic party. In that case, so they are different. This Islamism is very metropolitan, maybe colonialistic, and industrial and post-industrial. It is not like that. That religiosity is a sort of life, and not lifestyle. It's culture. It is a kind of heritage. It's we can tell it has. It is also tradition, maybe, and it has also religion inside.
But nevertheless, it's astonishing. Could you explain this new, and I think very new, relationship between Islamic religion on the one hand side and capitalism on the other side?
Actually, I have a theory. If you're interested, this religion, this Islamism, is growth along to religious communities. In Turkey, there are two types of communities. I'm categorizing like that. One type of religious community is traditional. They have deep roots in the history. From the beginning of Islam, they are tarikats, Sufi sects. And the others, like Fethullah Gülen community, they are rootless, I'm saying. They don't have traditional roots. Fethullah Gülen community started to take a shape after 1980 coup d'etat by by army. So it doesn't have a root. It has some references to Said Nursi, a Kurdish religious leader, lived at the end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century. But practically there is no connection. It's just a kind of aesthetic reference to him. So
a spiritual one.
Not spiritual, because he is not spiritual leader. He is a sort of political leader, Said Nursi. So though after, along with the neoliberalization of market mechanism, Turkey had many crises, and banking system corrupted a lot of time. And those religious communities provided small, trustable environments to continue with investment in the capitalism. It is what neoliberal economy needs: flexible circles of trust. There is no state inside of it. They don't have to go to bank because banking system is collapsing. But they can, how to say, these became corporate business networks, those religious communities. And they were also flexible, and that neoliberal market economy needs that flexible investment force as well as flexible working force, and they provided it. So they found a kind of coherence with that neoliberal blueprint of economy and religious blueprint of community.
But for example, in Europe, it was very difficult. Nevertheless, if you take the end of the Middle Ages, it was very difficult for Southern and Central Europe to accept for example, to deal with money, to pay interests, to have capitalist economy, because there was nevertheless a very hard culture of forbidding dealing with money, taking interests, etc. So there was a sort of normative clash between the old Catholicism on the one hand side and capitalist structures beginning in Italy, in northern Italy, for example. It was not so easy to combine both, if you want, systems of social existence. Are there clashes like that between Islamic culture and capitalist culture?
Actually, there are a little bit. For example, there are groups in Turkey, we call them, green socialists, for example. But I cannot tell it's general or it has power to mobilize people or organize people around it, because in these kind of countries, especially in Turkey, there is also Islamism has also, not Islam, but Islamism has also a kind of revanchist narration, because they were oppressed in a very bad way by the secular modernization process.
So by the West, in a certain
by the West, and now they are having their revenge, and this feeling covers the how to say, conscious pain about the the religious order. Another thing, in the Islamic tradition, whatever you want you can find. You have tradesmen Sufis, or rich Halifas in Baghdad, for example, Harun Rashid. So there are references, a lot of references, reading partly some part of Quran and going along this. So there are some clashes, not clashes actually, discussions about it, but this modernistic developmentalist narration and project of Islam is covering it. So now they are empowered with 52% of votes, so it means something.
It's very interesting. If you today go to Istanbul, for example, you'll see new huge buildings of enterprises on the one hand side, and a sort of explosion of mosques on the other hand.
Actually, not about the mosques. I'm suspicious.
Okay.
I'm not sure about mosques, because at least it is now more planned. Before in the informal places, all the communities were making their own mosque, but now states stop it by the because of the aesthetic.
Okay. But what I wanted to ask, is there certain transformation of the substance of Islam by capitalism? Can you say that the substance of this religion, what substance this may be, is transformed by this contact of market economy, liberal economy, neoliberal economy, and even financial markets?
If I define Islam as what Muslims live, yes.
Yeah.
But if I would define Islam throughout the resources, it cannot be, because those resources are open to everybody, and Islam was not as much as institutional like Christianity. So because of that, but I'm not sure about it now. As an anthropologist and as an academician and a journalist, I'm defining Islam what Muslims living.
Okay.
So
a very inductive form.
Otherwise, I cannot solve these problems.
But if you allow me to ask a very personal question, so I know that when you were young, you carried the veil.
Yeah.
And I don't know at which age you gave it away.
Last period of my teenager.
Okay. So can you describe this change for yourself?
Yeah. In the beginning, I'm also coming from a religious family, and in the beginning,
It means a religious family means Orthodox family, or
No, it's well, my father is a primary school teacher, and my family is following some Sufi sects, but there was no strict.
Yeah, but this was in Istanbul.
No, in Ankara.
Ankara, okay.
In Ankara, and my religiosity was totally different from my family's religiosity because I'm inspired by Iranian revolution, and it was something revolutionary, and especially Ali Shariati, because he was talking about social justice, equality, these kind of very exciting ideas, and it was also it had also Islam inside of it. So that kind of Islamism was a kind of link between my family, because we lost our language at a point, but at the same time it's a sort of declaration of independence for me,
you yourself.
for me, and then I followed it, and then I started to work for Islamic media, because I was a journalist, and I started very early.
At what age you were?
Journalist.
Yeah, no, which age?
Which age? I was, I started to whale at my 16, and I finished 21.
Okay.
So I started to work for them, for radio stations, newspapers, journals, these kind of things. And it was the first time I saw how capitalism and capitalist relationships are coming, especially media, because media is very complex. Media has very complex relationship with capitalistic market and the politics. And seeing together them, especially in the rising period of Islamism, was a sort of heartbreaking thing, disappointment for me. And then I said to myself, okay, I will have my own sins. I will not carry the others. So it was a kind of, I didn't in the beginning, I didn't lose my faith to God, but I lost my faith to making something together, changing the world with those groups, with this ideology. So I lost my faith to ideology, not to God. Then my God understanding of God also changed. By the time, it is something different. But another thing, the situation of Muslim women is totally different from Muslim men, because you have to carry that sign together with you. And especially in the middle of that period, I started to think it is speaking louder than me, and much more than me, because whenever I go out to street with it, I was seeing those, because it was very tense period. The welfare party was on the government, and that military army was intervening the politics a lot, and every day there were protests on the streets by Islamists or by laicists. It was really very dense situation, and I was working at the same time as journalist in Ankara, in the center of everything, and I was the first journalist, reporter type of journalist in Turkey using headscarf. So I was at the spot, and I said, it is older than me, and I lost who am I under it, because it was installed so much by ideology, and different type of ideologies. I didn't choose them. So then I said, okay, I will leave it, and I left. It was the process. But I didn't lose my connection with the Islamic communities. I was always interconnected, because you cannot lose. You cannot just dismiss and erase your roots. And I saw their transformation during last 15 years, and then because of that, I decided to make this research.
Yeah, and just this research I wanted to mention. This research is very interesting, because you observe a certain link between lifestyle, religion, Islam, and urban architecture, and even a sociological layer. This means middle class.
Yeah.
Can you describe just in a very concrete way what are you observing in Istanbul?
First, this middle class is not the same thing with the welfare state middle class. This middle class is creating risk for whole society. You know, the welfare state middle class was easing risk for whole society because it was producing, but this middle class is coming from service sector, so it is and trade, and because of that they are
so no productive industries.
No,
so
they are just trading. You know, exporting, importing. They are earning a lot, but at the same time, this is too much. Global, and you know it is very fragile to the global financial situation, so they are always like this. Another thing, for example, you know, losing your place on the top takes only 2 weeks, for example. You know, you can, if you cannot pay one of your credits, it's all over, you know. You are, because everything is about trust and these kind of things, and this is also fragile. And it also redefines religiosity in relation in the relationship of people. Now I observe in the religiosity of this new middle class. Something is different from other. For example, they're not solidaristic anymore. But they are corporatist.
But let's just to make a focus on the subject. It is a special part of Istanbul. I cannot spell
Başakşehir.
Başakşehir is. How can you describe it? So it's a sort of gated community.
Gated city.
Gated city.
A gated city. During day there are 1 million people, because it has also organized industrial zone around, and during night it is like 150,000 people. So it is huge. Another thing, importance of Başakşehir comes from its foundation story, because it's a model for the whole transformation of Istanbul. Now that gated community idea is coming to Istanbul as a base of the urban plan model, new urban model, plan model. There are many justifications, but you know, because of that middle class thing, actually, you know, they are coming. Until now, they were happy there to be isolated, but now they have more money, so they want to enjoy with city.
But how can you see the transfer from religion to lifestyle in these gated cities? So how religion is present, for example?
I was about to tell it. You know, that new middle class thing is very important in the content of religiosity now. Now religiosity is really between God and the human.
It's a city of God.
Yeah, because you know, it is not in the relationship between people. It is in the relationship. It is in the relationship between individual and the community, religious community. Maybe a little bit. You know, it's not that much anymore, and it's in the I'm trying to say religiosity itself is secularized in that middle class environment. Because, for example, they are talking about namaz, praying, or oruç, fasting, you know, as if they are depositing money in the bank, you know, so they will make, you know, enough and they will go to heaven. But, for example, the local neighboring relationship disappeared. Even they are, you know, both of family using headscarf or religious, you know, because they don't have any common past. They cannot share the values. So this middle class environment, that lifestyle, totally changed the content of the religiosity itself.
So you would say this sort of new religiousness, this sort of city of God in the midst of Istanbul, a gated city, is an effect of neoliberalism.
Yes, totally.
And what is the collective idea, or the idea of collective existence behind that? It's a sort of community idea, a sort of society apart from society.
It's fear.
Yeah,
it's
fear.
just fear. Recently, Tayyip
Fear of
Erdogan,
falling down, or
fear of everything. You know, it's the basic feeling and the idea, even ideology of this. Because it is very risky, and you know the globalization is something. Is risky. So it is fear. Tayyip Erdogan recently told, you know, now he is trying to issue a sort of education reform in Turkey. And he said there is more religious classes and these kind of programs in the new education system, and he defends this. Yeah, naturally we are trying to produce new religious generations. And when we criticized him, he told us, okay, you don't want religious generations, so it means you want junkie generations. So you know, these binaries creating those kind of fears, and you know, in the architecture you can see that even they are it is, you know, they are raised walls, you know, it is the concrete wall is not enough. There is electricity on top of it. It is really crazy, and together with luxury and the traditional and exotic motifs, you know, these
let me ask two last questions. So you yourself observed this community, this gated city,
there.
And you lived there.
And
can you explain in some short ideas what feeling of existence you have in a city like this, in a city within a city, in a city which is composed by religion and capitalism in a certain way?
I don't think, you know, it's necessary to cite myself, because for me it was something new and I was there as a researcher, you know. But I wish I could make an empirical research about the usage of antidepressant drugs in Başakşehir. So it would say many things, because they are not happy there. But they need that kind of lifestyle. So because of that, it's very claustrophobic, and you know, it's very isolated, and all the relationships are very formal. So you know, it makes really hard.
But nonetheless, you confirm that this could be the future of Istanbul.
Yes.
And would you say that finally, I think you mentioned it in one of your papers, that we can, in a very simplistic way, call this kind of Islamism Protestantism?
There are many writers, you know, naming it Calvinism or Protestantism. There are many writers. It's not me, but you know, it's already done. Because I don't know so much about Protestantism or Calvinism, I cannot tell. But you know, I can tell this Islamism is market in Islamism, and actually, I can criticize that kind of categorization, because this market is not the same that Protestantism faced centuries ago, you know, so and change itself. So this market mechanism is a little bit.
Maybe there is a certain comparison, because, for example, the Calvinism or Protestantism of the Netherlands was very much based also on trade, on banks, on financial economy, on stock exchange, etc. It's a completely different capitalism than the capitalism of Catholic Italy, for example.
So Islam will produce something else, but it will not. I'm trying to say it won't be similar. The same thing with the Protestant capitalism. Islam is now adopting capitalism in a way, you know, and it will create a certain model, I think, and in a couple of years we will see what is producing.
And would you say that exactly this combination, viewing from Central Europe to Turkey, for example, this combination between Islamism, capitalism, financial capital, and this sort of new lifestyle would be the future of Turkey?
Yeah, Istanbul is marketized through this lifestyle now in the Arab world, you know, and they are coming and investing. Tayyip Erdogan has several projects. He will build a second and third Istanbul in the Istanbul's hinterland. So, and he's planning to sell those to, upper class Arab families. So, I think we'll see that, not only in Istanbul, many places, but we'll see that. Actually, in Dubai, even in Beirut, we have Jakarta. As I read, I never been there, but in Jakarta, in Malaysia also, they
so you see a certain global development or rise of this link between capitalist and Islamic culture.
Certainly, certainly. It is. They couldn't adapt it to capitalism, the modern capitalism by the state, from the upside down. But now, with that class movement, they are adopting it. That they are adopting capitalism and the current modernity. So we will see that, and they will remodify capitalism and modernity, I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.